Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to The Mothers, whenever you're listening. I'm Sarah Brown, your host, and today's guest is absolute dynamite. She embodies the premise of this podcast, that how things look on the outside and how they are lived on the inside are often not entirely the same. Bridging this divide matters because I think we've all come to buy into the idea of if you can see it, you can be it. But if we're comparing our insides to everyone else's outsides, we're seeing the wrong it. So how could we ever think we could be it? Those women out there making a dent in the universe and raising kids, they look like perfect, efficient, intentional, well-resourced, smarter than us machines, living out a life plan devised at birth. But in practice, they're a lot like us, wanting to make an impact on the world and also wanting to be present for the small moments with friends, family, and kids. Feeling immense gratitude, but also wondering if they're enough or if it's enough. Drawn to climbing those ladders and competing for those trophies, but only if it's in service of work that matters. Trying, failing, learning, trying again, feeling uncomfortable and underqualified, wondering why. And this is all before breakfast. We all exist with some tensions in us, and I think it's worth exploring how these greats of the world have wrestled with them, so we can all feel less like there's something wrong with us when we do, and also get some wrestling tips along the way. And with that metaphor in mind, our guest today, Yvonne Wassenaar, is the ultimate wrestler. Yvonne is a heavily seasoned operator, board member, and founder coach / founder advisor. She started her career in Accenture's Silicon Valley offices in the 90s, and since then has seen tech totally transform itself and our lives, taking on big jobs in what I see as the intimidating, big, hairy problem worlds of cloud and SaaS. That's software as a service with 2 big S's on the ends. She's a 2-time CEO of Puppet and of Airware and was CIO at New Relic. After selling Puppet in 2022, she now splits her time between her board work with world-class companies such as Arista Networks, Forrester, JFrog, and Rubrik, and advising early-stage startups, including Lanai, co-founded by a prior favorite guest of ours, Lexi Reese. She's also deeply passionate about mentorship, which she does formally at Harvey Mudd College and the UCLA Business School, but also informally throughout Silicon Valley. See? Well-oiled machine. And yet her life is more complicated, more nuanced and deeper than that, of course. She's the single mother of 3 children, born after their father passed away from cancer. Because Yvonne, after living much of her early life in service of achievement and success, fell deeply in love with a man that helped her see the world, herself, and what matters differently. Yvonne's path has been far from an easy one, and as she will say, that's part of what has made it meaningful. She's very much in the proverbial arena in all parts of her life, and that means she does hard shit. She deals with hard things, but she doesn't leave. She sits in it. She carries the hard. She does her best, knowing it's not always perfect, but it's damn good enough. Before we get to it, please do me a favor, if you could. If this podcast has meant something to you, tell a friend. If it's made you think differently, feel comforted, given you new ideas for what you want out of life, help us keep growing by following and reviewing us wherever you're listening now and joining our Instagram community at The Mothers Pod. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now, I give you the incredible Yvonne Wassenaar. I'm so glad that you are here and are willing and up for having this kind of a conversation. And from what we were even talking about before we started, I can tell that you have a lot to share. So yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for hosting me. Like I said, I've listened to a number of the podcasts that you've done, and I do think it is very important. I grew up in a generation where women were first being able to have more commonly, quote, high-powered jobs. And I remember when I went from being a partner at Accenture to being a VP at VMware, and for the first time ever, I had like my own office. And I made a very conscious decision to put my kids' artwork up in my office because I wanted people to know that I had kids. I wanted my kids actually helped me decorate. I wanted my kids to know that they were part of every moment of my day, even if I wasn't physically there. And it was a big transition point that changed the conversations I had with people on my team and people in the company,
Mm-hmm.
because they would come to me. Like, one woman came to me and was trying to figure out, when was a good time to have kids, to which anytime's a good time and no time's a good time.
Yes, right, right.
But
Yeah.
it was a really interesting conversation that was enabled because there were signals and signs that it was okay. And I think the more that we have the honest conversation of none of this is easy,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it or we don't love it, but acknowledging that it is hard gives people permission to be vulnerable and ask for help and perspective in ways that I think that they wouldn't otherwise necessarily feel as comfortable, or even just do it all. So
Yeah. Oh,
thank you
so true.
for what you're putting together.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for being a part of it. Yeah, I was we like to start with the sort of journey of hearing people tell their own version of the story of how they reached where they are today. I also do want to say before we get into it, which was that I was, logging all over. You have very impressive resume full of incredible achievements, and I was like, wow, this is I'm standing in front of someone who was, approached life without fear, on a mission to climb the ladder, to be in charge and be successful, and kind of wonderfully, and we'll talk about this more, but like occupy these spaces that otherwise are really kind of white male dominated. And then the internet led me to this beautiful podcast interview that you did a couple years ago, this third act with Liz Tinkham, who I hope I said that correctly. And very much to the whole premise of this, I was like, wow, this woman, your life is rooted in love and hope and purpose and growth. And I think that seeing all of that come together is what it makes me tingle. Like, I think that's the meaning of life, is that there are humans out there, and let's humanize them as opposed to see them as only as their accomplishments, of which you have so many. You have so much wisdom to share, and you've lived so much life, and there's so much more ahead, but there's that I'm sure as you go through it, you're kind of weaving it together in different ways in your own mind. And to that point, as I said, we like to start with the storytelling of not letting me sit here and tell you how your life worked, but hear you kind of tell this. How do we tell the story of Yvonne, and how you reached where you are today?
Yeah. The older you get, I think the more context and perspective you have on your own life, and the more kind of surreal it is to have other people describe your life, because it often feels, at least in my situation, like somewhat detached, because you can look at my LinkedIn or my resume and be like, wow, what a master plan.
Yes.
What a climb the ladder. Like, she must have been at this from the time she was in the womb. But the reality, and I'll tell my story in like 2 different books, because I think there is one about me as a person and as a professional, and there's one as me as a mother, which do intertwine, but it's interesting, they're also somewhat separate. From a personal standpoint, I kind of look at my life into a chapter on survival, a chapter on achievement, a chapter on impact, and I think where I'm now much more on empathy. And the reason why the first chapter is really on survival is my parents immigrated to this country from Holland. I'm the youngest of 3. We're all a year and a half apart. They got divorced when I was 4. And my mom, unfortunately, remarried a sexually abusive alcoholic. And so I was sexually molested when I was in 2nd grade. And I think what was most traumatic for me at the time was the fact that I had actually built a close bond with my stepfather. And so there was a great deal of betrayal that when you're that young, you don't actually understand. I think the other thing that I've subsequently learned doing a lot of therapy now that I'm in my late 50s is there was also a lot of sadness and guilt around a mother who didn't protect me and who didn't
Yeah.
take care of me. And so I was fortunate that I had amazing teachers and some really good friends. And I threw myself into school because that's where I found protection and a sense of self worth. I wasn't a brilliant child, but I worked really, really hard. And I graduated high school a year early. So I went off to college at 16.
Mm.
And I was working from the time I was 12. I used to clean offices and do things with my older sister until I could get a legal job at Sizzler Steak Seafood Salad. Um, and what was interesting is my goal when I went to college was to be able to make $100,000 a year, so I would never have to be dependent on a man the way that my mom was,
Mm.
because I viewed her as trapped. And when I graduated from college, I got a job at Accenture, and I was a workaholic, and I programmed software, and I just like threw myself into my job, and I went into what I would call the achievement phase of my life, where I really like just wanted to work really hard and wanted to be recognized for that work, because that was my sense of self.
Yeah.
Um, and it was my sense of safety, because to me, money wasn't about status or being able to buy things. It was this mental model in my head of, if I had money, people couldn't take advantage of me. They couldn't trap me. They couldn't do these things. And so I think the most interesting element was I was working at New Relic, and I had a good male friend. And he said, Yvonne, you're such an accomplished executive. I have these women who are also really accomplished executives. And I don't know why, but I think you should all just get together and talk. And it was this Friday afternoon. And I remember the exact conference room we were in. And it was myself and these three other women. And we're all looking at each other like, not really sure why we're here.
Yeah.
But Andrew
Yeah.
thought this is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And one woman starts talking about how her childhood really influenced who she became as a super successful professional,
Mm-hmm.
and someone to this day I'd still look up to a lot. And her grandmother was the first bank commissioner, and like she came from a very stable, very well off family with women who were role models of achievement and accomplishment in an era where you never saw that. And I remember sitting there saying, wow, that really resonates with me in a really odd way.
Mm.
And so because I'm where I am because of what happened in my childhood. So my childhood was nothing like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of went through and I told this story about my stepfather and going away to college and all this stuff. And the woman, Mary Cranston, who's incredible, she just looked at me and she said, oh, she goes, okay, so you're a fear driven person. And I got really mad. I'm like, fear driven?
Mm.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Did you not hear my story? Like, I
Yeah.
did this and I accomplished that. And I'm like, and I haven't even told you, like, my fiance passed away of cancer, and I went on and I had 3 kids by myself, all these things. And she was like, yeah, it's okay. You're fear driven. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I remember, like, the conversation moved on, but I remember the next day I was driving as 3 kids in car seats in the back, going to the grocery store. And I'm like, I'm still angry. And I'm like, there's nothing this world can throw at me that I can't handle. And I was like, oh my God, why do I think the world is always throwing things at me?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a really great executive coach at the time. He was also a pseudo-therapist, neurosurgeon, God knows what. I mean, he was a very
Mm-hmm.
accomplished man, but I ended up talking to him about this conversation, and we talked about the abuse when I was younger, and he really helped me break through that the wiring in my brain, because some of this trauma happened early in my life, and trauma can come from all different aspects. But for people who experience trauma early in their life, they can become fear driven.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when it acts unconsciously, it can hold you back versus if you confront your fears consciously, you can actually set them aside and go on and achieve other things. And so it's this whole concept of moving from, clearly I wasn't a victim. I was a survivor, but you could go from being a survivor to a thriver. And that really changed the whole trajectory of my professional career because I had found comfort in being the supporter of somebody else because that was less risky. And I felt comfortable, kicking all the boxes versus asking for what I really felt I could do. Like I always felt I had to earn things and do things. And, a simple example is when I became CIO, it was kind of funny because my boss had suggested I take this role. I didn't want it. I decided I wanted it. He's like, okay, well, now you have to convince the CFO. And the CFO only wanted to give me a small piece of it. And what was interesting is my old self would have been like, yeah, I'll take a small piece of it and then I'll earn the rest. And and the reason is because he only wanted to give me a small piece, which kind of made me think I only deserved a small piece. And if I pushed back, maybe I wouldn't get anything at all. And I had all these things going on in my head. And by like sitting in a room and acknowledging, okay, why would I think that's okay? And what are the feelings behind that? And acknowledging like the sense of, well, all these things could go wrong. And so maybe I should just take what I can get. And then saying, okay, well, what if nothing could go wrong? Like, what could I do? And, if absolutely nothing could go wrong and everybody said yes to everything I wanted, what could I build? What could I achieve? And I remember going in and talking to the CFO and telling him my vision in the perfect world. And he looked at me and he goes, wow. He goes, I'm not even sure I understood half of what you said, but it sounds really good. I'm like, yeah. I said, I'm super excited about it. He goes, yeah, but to do that, like, you're going to need more than I was planning on giving you. And I'm like, yeah, you would. It's like, oh, okay. Well, let me go talk to Philip. And they ended up giving it all to me. But I think if you look at my career, like my career exponentially took off because I learned the skill of being able to go from just surviving to really thriving and believing that maybe not everything in my life was going to be bad and I'd have to deal with it, but like maybe sometimes things would go my way and I could actually manifest that in my life. So if I overlay my motherhood journey on that, I never wanted kids. And it was very grounded in the fact that, well, I love my mother. She lives down the street from me now. We're good now. That I just felt she was not a great mother. And I actually saw a lot of myself in my mom because my mom worked all the time and she was never really around. And here I was working all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I'd be a horrible mother. Like I could never do it all. And I remember like at one point in like my 20s, I'm like, I should just get my tubes tied, like not even risk it. Like I never want kids. And then what was interesting is I did meet the love of my life when I was in my mid 30s. And he was just an absolutely wonderful human being. He was older than I was. And I remember when my parents first met him, um, they were like, hey, we could not have designed somebody more perfect for you. And I would say Kev brought out the best in me and sides of me that I didn't realize I had in myself. And he ended up getting diagnosed with a B-cell lymphoma. And we decided, gosh, even though we'd never really talked about having kids, I think when you're confronted with, a life impact like that, we decided, well, actually, maybe we did want to have kids at some point.
Yeah.
And so he went to a sperm bank, and it was supposed to be a very treatable cancer. And we kind of decided, because I was in my achievement phase, that he would be the stay-at-home dad if we had kids, because he was a graphic designer and an artist, and he worked from home, and he cooked, and he like was just, had a lot of feminine qualities where I had a lot of masculine qualities. And we just kind of thought that would be a great way to raise kids. So before he started chemo, he went to a sperm bank. And unfortunately, 4 months later, they found a rare and aggressive T-cell lymphoma. And then 2 months later, he passed away.
Yeah.
And so I was 36,
Yeah.
and he had 3 surviving brothers, and I wouldn't have had kids just to have kids. And I certainly was too old to, like, get over grieving that loss in my life and meeting somebody else, but I thought I had this opportunity to maybe have our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I did go on to have his 3 children. Um, I got pregnant with my oldest right away, and then I tried to get pregnant and I couldn't through IVF, and then I got pregnant and I miscarried at almost 12 weeks, which was pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
And I had complications with the miscarriage, and then I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to have an only child, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I got pregnant with twins, so
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 kids that are 2.5 years apart. My oldest, and then my youngest. And my oldest is turning 20 on October 31st, so she's a Halloween baby. And
Nice.
my twins will be 18 on April 1st.
Yeah.
And my brother used to joke if I had more kids, I'd probably have triplets on Christmas, but
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
But they're beautiful and wonderful children, and I was blessed that I had an amazing nanny that came into my life when my oldest was
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks old. She's still in our lives. She and her
Nice.
husband are actually the godparents of my kids. They're from El Salvador.
Mm-hmm.
Julia's 4 months younger than me, but her kids, she has 2 kids who are. Her daughter was 8, and her son was 5 when my kids were born. But my kids kind of got to grow up in kind of dual lives of the crazy single mom who was trying to do everything, and then my nanny who never finished high school and is like Mother Teresa and just
Yeah.
oozes love
Yeah.
and home baked goods. And
Oh.
um, it was a tear jerking moment when I was helping my oldest with her college essay, and she talked about how her dad had died before she was born, and she grew up in these starkly different worlds. And the reason I cried when I first read it is she talked about how in my nanny's house it always smelled of fresh baked goods and
Mm.
laughter and games. And at home, her mom worked a lot, and she had to help out with the twins, and she wrote her own notes when she was
Mm.
absent from school. And it was pretty heartbreaking to
Mm.
not have been that mother that I think we see in the story books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the nice thing at the end, it did have a good ending where
Yeah.
she realized that she learned a lot from both of us.
Yeah. Yes, of
Um,
course.
and I would say it's um, what's been helpful as I've gotten older and into this last chapter of empathy, which I think really integrates these 2 parts of my life, is I've done, I don't know, I'd want to say coming up on 2 years of pretty intensive therapy,
Mm.
really recognizing and being able to accept that my mom was not a great mother, and yet she was a good enough mother. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a perfect mother, but I'm a good enough mother. And by going through and addressing very consciously a lot of the trauma that happened earlier in my life, I'm able to be more vulnerable and more connected with my own children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd say in the last 3 years, my relationship with my own kids is so much deeper and so much more than I could have ever imagined. And a lot of that came from recognizing what kids sometimes need is not that new pair of shoes or not that whatever they want, but they need to be seen and felt and have an emotional connection,
Mm-hmm.
which until later in my life I really struggled with having.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I feel blessed to have like been able to go through all these different phases and weave it together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what's fascinating is like when you look at my LinkedIn, like you get none of that.
Right. This is why I asked the question. Yes.
But
Yeah.
there was a lot of struggle and a lot of um, complex emotion and a lot of support from others that I was blessed to get along the way.
Yeah, it's a beautifully complicated, brutal, whatever that word is, kind of life. And when just logistically, so you were at Accenture for a long time. When did you decide to start having these children, your daughter? Was it while you
Yeah,
were there, or how were you?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I had, and I will say I got very lucky in my career because I had a lot of good coaches and support and people who came. It's just like there were a lot of teachers who saw something in me,
Mm-hmm.
and really fueled and pulled me in different directions. I had a lot of coaches and support and mentors and sponsors in my work career. I had I decided I was going to have Kev's kids, and I was actually going to quit Accenture because I didn't think I could be partner and do all the travel and all of that and be a single mom because he
Yeah.
could. And what was interesting is um, I got a job somewhere else. And when I went to resign, one of the top folks at Accenture was there. And the partner I had given my resignation to had gone up and spoken to him. And he came down and he's like, no, 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 like we need you to stay. We need more role models. We will
Mm-hmm.
support you as a single mother if you stay at Accenture. And so the only time ever, and I still feel bad about it, I reneged on the offer that I had
Mm.
accepted.
Yeah.
I stayed at Accenture. I had my 3 kids there,
Mm-hmm.
and they were as great as Accenture could be back in the day. I got,
Yeah.
say, 6 weeks maternity leave with my twins.
Mm.
Um, 3
Wow.
or 4 of it was before when I went 39 weeks with twins. So
Wow.
um, I had to go on short-term disability. But I remember going back to work and doing conference calls in like the little breastfeeding rooms. And
Yeah.
I had my oldest was potty training at the time, and I'm like breastfeeding 2 kids at the same time on the couch. And
Yeah.
like it's those days you look back on and you're like, I don't really know how I did that, but I
Sure.
did.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, it's amazing what you can achieve. And like I said, I did have an incredible nanny. One time I was
Right.
in those early days, I was so tired. I called my nanny up on a Saturday morning. They
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm like, but I just need to sleep. Like I was
Yeah.
fantasizing about sleep. And she came and she picked up the kids and I slept for 24 hours.
Mm.
And that's
Yeah.
where I say like having community, whether it's friends, family, nannies,
Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is super important. But I will say a career barrier that I think is important for folks to understand is I had a great exec coach, and she said, what do you want to work on this year? And I was like, well, maybe a double promotion because I'd been a partner almost for 5 years. And she said, well, do you want to be a consultant forever? And I was like, oh God, no.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I hate to break it to you. That's all you've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this story in my head that's like all I could handle right now because I was a single mom and I had 3 kids
Yeah.
and I'd been at Accenture for 17 years and I kind of controlled my own schedule because I was a partner and all these things. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, what makes you believe you can't do that somewhere else? She's like, you're one of the smartest people I know. You live in Silicon Valley. I'm sure tons of people would pay you more and give you more
Mm-hmm.
flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't believe her. Um, but I took a leap of faith. She kind of pushed me out of the nest
Yeah.
and it felt super risky at the time. But that's when I went from Accenture to VMware
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
worked for Carl Eschenbach, who now runs Workday. But Carl had been my client for 2 years. And he
Mm-hmm.
used to always say, could you just come work here? I could pay you more and Accenture less because I just want to work with you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. What would I do? He's like,
Yeah.
anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I just share that story because I think it's very common for working moms to like have this story of like, okay, but this company's so good to me, I can't leave.
Yep.
And it was very helpful to have somebody kind of push me out of the nest and realize though, no, actually you probably can.
Yeah.
You need to be thoughtful around what you're doing, um, but I do think we put up a lot of false barriers for
For
ourselves.
sure. I am curious. So many questions. Your life is full of there's so many things to get into, but in this moment, I was curious. A lot of our guests talk about becoming a parent being sort of a catalyst to them moving towards or taking action on things that are more passion based or purpose. They become more purpose driven in a certain way of what kind of work they want to do. Or they're like, I always said I was going to be a risk, or I want to role model a certain way of that a woman could be so that my kids can see that. Was that behind any of your, whether it was this move to VMware or moves since, that was that, I don't know, did motherhood sort of light a fire in some ways and in other ways kind of make you more brave, I guess, to do other things?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, the trigger point was actually when Kevin was sick. He had come home with the help of hospice,
Mm-hmm.
and one night during the middle of the night, he woke up. He couldn't sleep, and he was British, and so what do? You have a cup of tea and a bicky whenever you can't
Mm-hmm.
sleep or there's something hard. And he was talking about how he regretted not following his true passion in painting and art, that he had kind of gone a commercial route. And he was incredibly talented, and my kids have inherited his talent. Um, but it was pretty devastating at 36 to have this person who you love who's literally at death's door being regretful of how they had spent an aspect of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And that was life altering for me because it was the first time that I really contemplated my own death
Mm-hmm.
and how would I look back on my life and what would I regret? What would I be proud of? And I think that experience with Kevin was part of what gave me the courage to have our kids together.
Mm.
Um, and what became really important to me over time is that I want to work on problems that really matter.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the conversations I had with my kids when I took the job at Puppet. Puppet is based in Portland, Oregon. I live in San Francisco. We live in San Francisco. And my kids
Mm-hmm.
were like, why are you taking the CEO job in Portland, Oregon? We don't want to move. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we're not going to have to move. I'm just going to travel up there, but it's a global company. I have to travel anyway. And they're like, well, but we don't want you traveling all the time either. I was like, yeah, I know. I said, but let me tell you why I want to do this. And the reasons I wanted to do it is one, I thought the problem that Puppet worked on, which was infrastructure automation, which is, you know, all the scalability and security that's important underneath all the fun apps and everything that we want to do in this
Mm-hmm.
digitized world. That's super important. And I felt there were a lot of things I could contribute to the company. And the final thing is that I thought it was really important. There aren't a lot of women who get invited to be CEOs, and certainly not in hard tech companies. And I wanted to be able to make that difference.
Yeah.
And they looked at me and they're like, okay, mom, you can do it.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I saw an interview that mentioned that anecdote, and you described very much what you said, and supposedly you were also quoted to say, as I see, most importantly, because very few women are invited to run tech companies, I see this not only as a great opportunity but also an important obligation.
Yeah.
And I see a little bit of that in you, and I don't know you well enough, but in sort of the choices that you've made since, and I've heard this echoed guests, but also women that are leading in industries where they are underrepresented, this sense of duty and obligation to take up do the harder thing so that it's easier for the next folks to come that are going to come behind us. And I first just want to say how admirable that is, because you're folks that are doing this, it's not like their life is easier than the rest of us. And so sure, let's like do another hard thing. But I'm also curious where that comes from and kind of how you find the wherewithal, because people really are told that they have, and I think even particularly once you become a parent and a mother, in some ways even worse, that you're so drained, that how to also take up the pick up the baton and be like, I will also be the one. Where does that
Yeah.
where did that come from for you? How can we bottle that up and give it to others?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a few things. One is, and I do plan, like I do portfolio board work today and advisory work, but I do plan on going back and being a CEO again once I'm an empty nester.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I do believe it's an opportunity and an obligation. And what's interesting is what I have learned sitting in those positions of power is this is so much more than opening the doors for others who look like us.
Mm-hmm.
It is about having the opportunity to bring a much broader network into the ecosystem. So, for example, when I was at Puppet, I got to reshape my board and bring on people from diverse communities who hadn't had those experiences and yet were
Mm-hmm.
so qualified and so helpful. And it's not just about sitting in those positions, it's also about the wealth creation that can come with that. And the fact that people who come from these diverse backgrounds oftentimes reinvest that wealth in very, very different ways that are very community focused and make massive impacts in
Mm-hmm.
where we live and work. And so I think that's a really important aspect of it, that you can empower others much beyond just being that role model.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing that surprised and energizes me the most is actually the shift in leadership culture that we can create.
Mm-hmm.
And it is actually creating different role models, oftentimes for men, that
Mm-hmm.
has been really fascinating. Like when I ran this small drone startup, I had this engineer was in my office and he was clearly exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, are you okay? He's like, sorry. He's like, I'm so tired. My, 1.5-year-old had an ear infection. I had to go to the emergency room, da, 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, go home. Like, just get sleep. And the next day he came back. He's like, I'm, I don't know why I told you that story. I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, why should you be embarrassed? Like that happens to everybody. Like kids get
Mm-hmm.
ear infections. You do that. And I think it's great that you went to the emergency room and your wife, didn't have to go.
Yeah.
And he is like, wow, okay. And then when I ran Puppet, um, when we folded the company, there was one gentleman who sent me a really long LinkedIn post, like 6 or 9 months later, and he was describing how he was talking with his wife about me at the dinner table with his 9-year-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another gentleman who sent me a handwritten note. It was like scribbled in a little arrow, like flip it over, here's some more. And he talked about how the company was so different from a culture perspective, and that, every CEO says they want to, hear from their employees, but I actually listened. And this whole concept that vulnerability is actually strength, not weakness,
Yeah.
when it presents itself in the right form. And so what I've come to appreciate is it's it's many things when you take on these opportunities that you can impact. And when you see that richness and when you see the breadth of what's possible, and you know that you have a community of people who are supporting you and who will help you work through it, I think that makes a massive difference. The other thing that makes a difference is something you mentioned earlier, which is you do want to be a role model for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask, my kids, um, what does your mom want to do when they were younger? They go, she wants to change the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is, um, as they start to learn and understand as they get older, like what you do and how you do it, there's a lot of pride and respect and sense of self-worth that they can find themselves in where they
Mm-hmm.
come from and their parents. The other thing that I would say is life is about trade-offs. And so I wasn't at every pickup, I wasn't at every drop off. Um, and and my kids, had to do a lot on their own and be very responsible. And when my oldest went off to college, she was really thankful that, she felt nervous, but safe going to New York on her own, even though it's a super big city and Parsons does not have a traditional campus, but because she had a lot of those life skills. And so I think it's a lot of trade-offs. And the important thing, and this is a short story I'll tell you that was transformational between my kids and I. But when I went from working at VMware to New Relic was in San Francisco. We lived in San Francisco. My twins who were in kindergarten were like, "Oh, this is great, Mom. Like you can," I guess they were going into first grade. They're like, "You can pick us up from school now." And I was, it's nighttime and my twins they're boy girl twins, they used to share a room. And I'm laying on the bed with my little girl. And I think, well, Abby, I can drop you off more. I said, but picking you up is going to be hard because you get out of school at 2:30 and San Francisco is a big town and I work on the other side of town. And she's like, yeah, but Mommy, I really want you to pick us up. And I was like, yeah, but Abby, Mommy has a really big job and it's on the other side, but I can drop you off more. And we were going back and forth. She was resilient. And at one point she said, Mommy, my daddy is dead. And I want you to pick me up from school. And I get teary-eyed now. And I was, but like you're just in this mode. I'm like, yeah, but Abby, Mommy has a big job and I work on the other side of town. And then her twin brother's like, yeah, Mommy, our daddy's dead. And I just started crying. And we all cried ourselves to sleep. And the next morning, I was like, what kind of messed up mother am I? Of course, I can pick my kids up from school. And my little girl woke up and she's like, Mommy, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to make you cry. She's like, you don't have to pick us up. It's okay. And I said, you know what, Abby? I said, you're right. I said, I should be able to pick you up. I said, I probably can't do it every day. But what if I pick you up on Friday?
Yeah.
And you know what I found is I could leave Fridays at 2:00 and take the train and pick her up at 2:30 with her brother and bring him home and then work from home once we were here. And I learned part of why she wanted me to pick them up is because she wanted me to know the mom of her friends so she could do play dates.
Oh, yeah.
And she wanted her friends to see that she had a mommy. Because a lot of the other kids, the moms were picking them up. And I tell that story because it is not easy being a working parent, but I do think sometimes we create expectations of ourselves in the workplace that are expectations that maybe we're the only ones setting for ourselves. And maybe we can be more creative in trying to find more balance.
Well, I love too that your answer wasn't, okay, I need to figure out how to do this every day. You were like, what if I could do it one day, and how much that really matters. And then I also think lots of therapy must be happening or have been happening, but there's so much, you're so good at sharing the hard and sharing the sadness and then sticking it out and being there through the process. Cause it's not, life is going to be hard, as you've personally, unfortunately experienced, like hard things will happen. And the process of going through that with other people, even if they're having the hardness too, is such a profound, a lot of people in a certain way, like don't get that as we protect everyone so much. And I really do. I mean, Inside Out was right, but they say that sadness lets the joy in.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. I wanted to ask a slightly professional advice question, given your experience and also where you sit on these boards and what you were saying about helping more people get into these positions of quote power or higher up at different organizations. Because you described earlier days essentially saying, I don't know. You're saying, I don't know if these are the exact words you would say, but some level of questioning whether you're qualified for something, or let me get at a certain level and then prove that I can do more. And the idea being, what if we shifted that to believing we could do the bigger, harder thing right off the bat, and I know your personal story, some of that is rooted in deep trauma and fear. I think there are also a lot of people walking around, many women in particular, who are like generally just don't have a disposition to say, I am qualified for that, or I deserve to be on the advisory board, or I deserve to be in the C-suite. More like I will slowly do what I am told to do and try to do the assignment as well as possible. And eventually someone else will realize that I'm great.
Yeah.
How do you, what's asking for a friend? How do you help people shift that mindset to, I'm not sure, let me try to prove that I can, to I know I can and I deserve that bigger
Yeah.
opportunity?
Yeah. I'll tell you two quick stories. One is trying it out and being successful. And I had an experience where, at the prompting of my male peers, I asked my boss for a bigger job, which I would never have done on my own. Like one of my male peers actually role played this with me, so I'd get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to my boss, and he said, "I know you would do an amazing job, but you have 3 young kids. Um, and so no."
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him and I said, "Would you say that to anyone else on your staff?" Because I was the only female.
Yeah.
And he said, "No, but I care about you more as a mother than I do a friend." And I'd known this person for years. And in that moment in time, I just looked at him, and I believe it's because he said he knew I do a great job, that I had the courage to say, "You know what? I'm a grown woman. I'm an amazing mother. And if you don't give me this job, I quit." And I walked off.
Yes.
And he gave me the job.
Great.
And he's become a much more empathetic person, learning not to judge whether a working mom can do it all or not.
Yeah.
But it gave me the courage of, speak your truth, that I really was going to quit if you didn't give it to me. And that leads to the second thing, which is you need to have leverage, or leverage is very helpful. And when I didn't get promoted this one time, I went crying to my girlfriend, who confirmed all the misjustices, and we created the checklist of new things I was going to do to get definitely promoted next time.
Yeah.
And I went to one of my guy friends, and he's like, "Don't cry on my shoulder." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "This is your fault." I'm like, "How is this my fault? They screwed me over."
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and he said, "No, no, no, no." He goes, "You're one of the smartest people I know." He's like, "But you have no leverage." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I bet you eat your lunch at your desk." I'm like, "Of course I do. I'm a working mom. And I have a lot of things
Yeah.
to do, and I got a big
Yeah.
job." And he said, "Well, that's your problem." He's like, "You're one of the smartest people I know, and nobody knows who you are. And so you have no leverage. The only people who know you are the people in that company." And he's like, "So what you need to do is you need to start networking." And that's when I made this calendar that sat in my office. And every week I would challenge myself to meet somebody new, and I would challenge myself to rekindle a relationship with somebody I hadn't spoken to in a long time. And I would ask people to introduce me to people. And what I started to realize is I could recruit better talent. I could get access to better information. I could be more influential with customers, partners, all of that. I could find better job opportunities. I could garner more respect, and I had more confidence
Yeah.
that I could really stand up for what I wanted and what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing I did is I've had a lot of executive coaches, and that has also been helpful. And so I think in your career, like getting to the VP level, you're kind of good with like leadership training. I was at Accenture, I had leadership training up the wazoo. But once you're like at that senior vice president or that C level, or, having an executive coach is like having a physical trainer, like somebody who can really understand what makes you tick. So going back to my new Relic story, the unlock was that integration between my childhood and how I showed up as a leader. That once I understood that, I could change the trajectory of my career. And you only get that with really, well-trained coaches who work at those higher levels of leadership that I think can make a big difference.
Thank you for that. A very good practical advice. So thank you. Yeah, this has been such a great conversation. I feel like I've gone from wanting to give you a trophy to like want to give you a hug. We do these really rapid fire last closing questions. If you have like 30 seconds, we can fly through them. So if you could go back and tell your new mom self one thing, anything come to mind?
I would give myself permission to not be perfect. I think when I was super early in that childhood, that baby early childhood phase, I was trying to be the perfect employee, to be the perfect mom, to do everything. Um, and the two things that comes at the cost of, one is sleep, which is super
Yeah.
important. But the other is what we've spent a lot of time talking about, which is that ability to stop, listen, be vulnerable, and connect emotionally. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's okay if the house is a mess. It's
Yeah.
okay if dinner gets burnt.
Yeah.
What's important is that you hear what matters and you can share what matters along the way. And I didn't do that as much as I wish I would
Yes. Oh, very wise. Yeah. Um, is there, this may have answered it already, but anything else that you could provide yourself or your family along this journey of motherhood that would have made it a little bit easier, acknowledging that it's not supposed to be easy?
have. Yeah, I would have spent more time with friends.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is I didn't really spend any time with people outside of work. So I have a lot of work friends.
Mm-hmm.
But literally I worked, I traveled, I tried to like take care of myself, and we had a lot of pets.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is you role model a lot for your children, social engagement,
Mm-hmm.
and making connections. And like the thing I think I did well is we ate dinner at the dinner table a lot. I tried to
Mm-hmm.
prioritize that. And that's still the favorite time of day. And I think the reason I've had good relationships with teenagers is they were programmed to talk at the dinner table. And so
Yes.
now we have great conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But we never really had people over. So like my
Mm-hmm.
kids that go to their friend's house, and I didn't really have friends who would come over. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a lost opportunity for me, but also for them.
Yeah.
That now I work to do more of, but that didn't come
Yeah.
until later in life.
That's so wise. I think about that actually now that I realize it intentionally. I am not naturally an extroverted host person, but I feel like some of our kids in particular need to know that that's important and need to see how to do that. So that is really valuable. All right, final question is your kids may listen to this one day. Is there anything you want to say to them?
How much I love them. I mean, I would say one of the things, um, parenting is super hard, but each of my children, just like their dad, has brought something out in me that I think has made me a better person and has
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to have greater impact in this world. They've given me energy, love, courage, but also depth and texture in a way that
Mm-hmm.
if I hadn't had them, I don't believe I'd have. So
Yeah.
a huge
Oh,
thank
well,
you to all three of my kids.
yes, they're lucky. Yvonne, thank you so much. This has been such a deep, wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing so much of your life with me and us. I feel really honored to hear it. So thank you for the time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Yvonne. Wow, what a conversation. I have to go call V.
Hi, how are you?
Um,
I'm dying to hear about Yvonne. Is that how you pronounce Yvonne?
Yvonne, yes.
Okay.
Okay, what a story. Like so many we need to have like 25 episodes with her. 'Cause there's
Amazing.
so
A
many angles
series.
on her story.
Okay.
Um, but I think the big like headline is like if you look at her resume, and she said this too, and it's just like builds the whole premise of why I love doing this podcast and sharing these stories of our integrated lives is if you look at her, basically all the internet will tell you about her is incredibly qualified track record of like C-level leadership of like hard tech companies. Like these are sort of like
Sure.
the sort of tech from my perspective the least sexy, but at the same time like the most essential. Like she would lead companies that are like, this is why the internet works. I'd be
Yes,
like,
yes, yes, yes.
and I'd be
Okay,
like,
that's sex.
but what about like these cool apps that like look
No,
fun?
no, no. This is how the internet works.
And which is incredibly badass. And also as a woman to do that is incredibly
Yes.
even more badass. So she's run various companies and then she's like on like many boards and a senior advisor to many big deal companies. But then you get the other side or the fuller picture of her life, which is like, because that would make you be like, okay, striver for achievement, like really wanted to be successful in a like not even traditional way, but like in this corporate-ish tech world. And then you get the broader picture of she was basically abused as a child, and that trauma understandably created a sense of fear generally in life. All of this she didn't necessarily know when she was that age, but lived kind of a fear-driven existence. But part of that was like, to feel safe is to be able to provide for myself financially. And so she had this like very specific goal of making $100,000 a year, and which all of this makes so much sense. And kind of was in this very achieving mindset. Then eventually started to like sort of confront why, and got into trying to understand like this fear-drivenness, which someone told her, like, you have a fear-driven life. And she was like, what do you mean? I'm like,
no, I don't.
I'm not afraid. I'm a survivor. But of course, the thing that we resist the most is often the thing that might be the most true. So anyway, so lots of therapy. And then fast forward, she's still in like Silicon Valley, California. And she meets this guy, Kev, who I assume full name is Kevin. She's 30 something. He's, I think, a couple of years, he's somewhat older. And she falls like deeply in love, and he is loving, affirming, like validating, like just gives her all of the sense of maybe emotional safety that was really what she was craving. And then, and even actually preceding this, she said that she was like, I never even knew if I wanted to have kids. Actually, she explicitly was like, I didn't want to have children.
Wow.
Largely based on what her experience was, and her experience as she understood her mother at that time was like, this is just a recipe for disaster. Then husband winds up being diagnosed with a vicious form of cancer, and, or sorry, not husband. Fiance ends up being diagnosed with vicious form of cancer, and that basically gave him months to live. And in and around this, he'd gone to like a sperm bank to like log their things, because at that point they were, you know, on the verge of getting married and thinking about having kids, maybe, even though she said she never even knew that she wanted to do that. And she said, and you would get this so much, V, which is like confronting death obviously like makes you, and his as well as her own sense of like mortality makes you think about things and
100%
think about them differently.
Yes.
And so she beautifully, like metaphorically, literally held him through the end of his life. And in that process, many things happened, but one things that she shared were this, the idea of her having children with his DNA, after his passing. And then the other one being like, hearing him reflect on his professional life and saying that he wished he'd followed his passions more, as opposed to kind of like doing the thing that he felt like he should be doing. And so anyways, that was like understandably a major inflection point for Yvonne, and thinking about what she wanted out of life and how she was going to do it all. And then did decide to have kids. She ultimately had 3 kids, a girl and then boy-girl twins, through IVF. And all of this made possible by an amazing nanny named Julia.
Julia,
who played the role. She was even saying how when she was thinking about having kids with Kevin was saying that he would take sort of like the primary parent role.
Wow. Yeah.
And it sounded like this wonderful Julia had a very, she said these words, not me, but sort of, if in some just generalized way, Yvonne sort of took on a more sort of masculine role in life, that Julia had sort of these classically feminine, like homemaker things of like she said her daughter, this made all of us tear up, but she was saying her oldest in some college application essay or something was the experience of different homes, of Julia's home versus her home, and how Julia's home, it always smelled like cookies and like warmth and stuff, and that was something that she didn't get to experience as much with her own mother, which then raised all sorts of other conversations and questions about how do you, I don't know, the idea of being a good enough mother versus like a perfect mother, and role modeling of being a working mom who like still finds a way to do all of these things, and a sense of obligation that she feels to do the hard thing and be the first woman to do it, kind of thing, even if it's, as I said already, even if it's very hard, because personally wanting to show her kids that she could do that, but also more broadly, like opening up space, not just for that one slot, but like systemic change within those organizations and like forward thinking recruitment and all that stuff. So I don't know. It was a fascinating, and you could sort of see how she herself, as she was having these conversations, like there's so many sides to her that trying to like get them all kind of integrated, which I think is a very classic, unfortunately, a childhood with trauma in it can create this sort of fractured sense of identities. And I think she's done an amazing job with a lot of work to discover herself whole. And I don't know, it was very beautiful. We cried, of course.
I just teared up. I'm like sitting here breastfeeding. I'm like, I don't know, even just hearing you tell her story, there's so many points in her life where it's so easy to just be like, I'm a victim and life is too hard and I just don't have it in me to keep doing these things.
Yeah.
And like choosing to, first of all, just keep going and continuing to like follow, like to live. And then not just live, but also seemingly like thrive and be so successful in so many ways. But also I just love this almost like rejection of like traditional nuclear families and roles and expectations, and that like, I don't know, family can be a collaborative experience in a different way than like just how we think of it. Like, I don't know, that's so brave to be like, I am choosing to still have these kids even though my partner's not here. And maybe that's even a little triggering because I'm sure there's traits and like characteristics or appearances that are similar, which is like beautiful and sad.
Oh
like,
my God, I know.
right?
Here's the part
Like,
where we both really lost it. And I would have
oh, no.
lost it more if I were trying to like move the conversation on. But to this point, she was sharing this story about she'd taken a new job. They're all San Francisco based. She'd taken a new big, I think, the CEO or CEO equivalent job at a company that was located in San Francisco as opposed to outside of San Francisco. And that to her daughter made it seem like she was much closer to be able to pick up her child after school. And daughter was literally like at bedtime, like, oh, well, now you can pick me up from school. And her mom was like, no. It's still quite far and you get out of school at 2:30. I can drop you off, but I still can't come to pick you up from school. And this like, she was very persistent and being like, why can't you pick me up for school? And eventually said, my dad is dead. I just want you to pick me up from school. And then her brother, this is the twin, I think, the brother, other siblings got involved saying like, our dad is dead. Like, can you just pick us up from school?
Oh my God.
And then everyone starts crying like in the story. And as she's like, I still don't know how to do this. And then everyone's crying and they fall asleep crying. And then in the morning,
oh my God,
mom is like, Yvonne is like, what kind of a mother am I that I can't go find a way to pick up my child from school? And so she says, in the morning, she goes back to her daughter and says, I'll find a way to pick you up from school. I can't come every day, but I'll come on Fridays.
Okay.
And her daughter also preemptively was going to say, or did say, I'm so sorry, Mom, that I said that to you. I know you have like a big job and like, it's okay. But everyone like went through this emotional thing like together.
Oh my
and then it was a breakthrough that she also, Mom Yvonne, realized like, instead of trying to be there, this was what to me, I thought was like genius and important, was classic response to that would be, okay, I need to find a way to be there every day. But instead it was like, I'm going to try to I'm going to commit to being there once a week on Fridays, which really scratched the itch and was enough. Like, it's sort of the classic, like you can do enough as it's to all. And I don't know, it was just a very
holy moly. I feel like how incredibly emotionally intelligent and like patient, and the fact that also speaks so much to their growing up experience, the fact that they were able to process that together and then explain after the fact, like, sorry, I said that, like, whatever, and to come to a conclusion that does work. Like, so often, I don't know, it's like, nope, this is my decision, this is what we're doing, and it is what it is because I'm the parent, and like the fact that Yvonne's able to like come back and be like, okay, I'm hearing your need, and it might not be what my need is, and that's okay. Like, let's find a middle ground. Like, damn.
Totally.
Oh my God. Yeah, I need to hear.
I know.
She needs to write a book about how to live.
Totally.
Because
Yes.
I want to do that. I want to do what she does. Wow.
I know. I don't know. So yeah, it was a important conversation. And also a reminder of she's 50 something. Like how just generationally these like the role modeling shifts, the mentality continues to shift because people before us did the hard thing. Now this can be more of like an optional thing maybe for the rest of us, although still necessary. Right. The last thing that I will say is she also talked about how just like the importance of normalizing the hard of like, yeah, it's hard to like have a big job and have kids, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. And like we're already doing a lot of hard things. So like just sort of add this to the list. It means like I won't be there for everything and I will be tired some more than I need to other times. So it was just sort of, which is a little bit generationally different, I think, than how even the 40 something cohort and the 30 and the 20 something cohort, where everything feels everything's so hard and why should I have to take on more hard?
Truly, yes.
But I thought that was really, I don't know, nice for people that are like, should I go for that bigger job? Should I not? And it's like, obviously there's many reasons to make these choices, but I think the idea of not being afraid of the hard, because to the point of these conversations, seeing people doing the hard thing and still like being okay is helpful. So you don't feel alone when it feels so hard. It's like, this is kind of what's supposed to be happening.
But anyway. Yvonne sounds like a badass. Also, I don't think I said this before, but I think it's in the same vein of what I said before, but like more, I don't know, like choosing to take action and live with such choice of things that after seeing her fiance die, like that really does throw you for a loop, and you're just like, damn, life is precious. Like you reevaluate just like everything when someone, and I don't know, that in that relationship capacity, when you lose someone like that. So the fact that she was able to like go through that, it's traumatic and sad, and grieve that, and like take lessons from it. Like it would be so easy to be like, ugh, that was really hard, and then just like whatever. The fact that she's like, what can I take away from this in like a productive way and a beautiful way? I'm like, damn.
I know.
Get it, girl. Absolutely.
I know.
Go Yvonne. What a badass.
Yeah. It is like, I keep adding more anecdotes, but like there is another theme of what we talked about too, was like how there are moments within parenting and things you might hear individually from your kids along the way that moment feels like you're doing something wrong, or they're saying something that implies that you're doing something entirely wrong. But that actually, if you zoom out and over time, those things that there might have been a moment that felt wrong are actually the reason that your kid is able to do something harder later. Specifically, she was talking about her oldest going to college in New York, and I think it was New York, but going away for college, and talking about how the oldest had to be fairly independent and responsible from a young age because there was only one parent, which is something that clearly Yvonne, and in some ways her daughter, everyone felt like was not ideal. But hearing that once she's in college, that she feels basically far better equipped to deal with this because of that experience, and feels less rocked by it. Like, I don't know, you just have to kind of like stick it out. Anything that's bad in that moment, just like stay with it.
Yes.
And over time, it may not actually be so bad.
Turns out we could do hard things, maybe. I feel like my generation of parents, none of us really like to see our kids feel discomfort. And it's just like, ooh, don't do that. Like, you're feeling sad, let me coddle you, whatever. And that's definitely not how I was raised, and how I hope and think that I tried to not parent that way. But like, this is a prime example of like, it works to feel like in discomfort and frustration and challenges, like you become stronger and you learn. And like, you can't learn just by being told something. You have to experience it, because you have to know how that feels. And like, what does it feel like to fail? Or what does it feel like to be lonely and by yourself, or have to figure something out on your own? Like, that is so important, and it's arguably the harder way to parent because I can't. It's like it's hard to watch, but like ultimately, clearly, was the right move, and like,
yeah,
her kids are better
she
for
also
it.
said this too, because I said something similar of like it's hard to know how to do the right thing,
Right.
And I think she at one point, this might have actually been before we started recording, but she was like, I've also learned like there is no right.
Sure. It just
like,
is.
Okay.
Whatever. But tell me, Yvonne, what's the right
but
thing?
what should I do?
Yeah.
So anyway, damn. Resilience, courage.
Oh, yeah.
Overcoming fear, or doing it, being afraid anyway, or repositioning what it means to be fear-based, all of those things.
She's courageous. What is it? The definition of courage? Wait, freedom is
courage is being afraid and doing
freedom
it anyway.
From fear. It's being afraid and going on anyway. Yeah. She's that.
Yeah.
Fun. Oh,
I know.
Well, thanks for sharing. Thanks for
being there for the recap. Amazing.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. What's the rest of your day like?
Where's your
joy in your week?
Well, my joy is that we have moved to a long-term living situation, and I feel happy. It's chaotic in here, and there's boxes, and there's all of a sudden I'm like, are we hoarders? Because we have so much stuff. But I know that it'll get better, and it feels so good to like feel happy in our space. And like,
it's so nice.
Yeah.
As someone in a not modern home, you are in a modern home now, and I'm jealous.
It's pretty crazy. I think the biggest, like, what is that we went from a, what was it, like 1820s home that was like really never kept up to we have a Toto washlet toilet with a heated seat.
Oh my gosh.
And like,
does it like spray up your butt too?
Yeah. And it also like self cleans after every time you go to the bathroom. So
my God.
I'm like, we live in smart house. This is happy.
That's amazing. Good
and
job.
I hate that I love it, but I do, and I'm not going to be sorry about it.
There's seasons for everything. Doesn't mean you have to commit. Maybe one day you'll want to go back. Well,
maybe, but in this moment, I'm here for my self-washing toilet and heated seat that I just know is going to feel good in the winter when it's cold.
Like, honestly, when life is so hard, as we were just talking about, if there are things you can control that make life feel easier, like do that.
I'm like, my mom died. Give me the nice kitchen. I'm over this. Fuck it. I have one parent. I want a air fryer / oven that has never been used before.
Yes.
Where's your joy this week?
My joy actually is behind the scenes undercover knowledge, but you know how we have the sponsor of Little Saints?
Yes.
That's been the one that we've been leading with, and it's been my bad. We need to I need to recruit more sponsors, but we were their like top performing affiliate brand in the last couple months, and I feel like fuck yeah. So to all the listeners that are buying Little Saints, like go buy the Little Saints. I love it. Use that code.
Yes.
The Mother's 20. Get what is it? Yes, 20% off. The Mother's 20.
Which is a significant amount. That's good. Yeah.
Yes. So that's pretty awesome. Validating.
It's really
I feel like you're here to be like, we're doing something that matters. This is validating from like a business perspective that makes you feel like we're reaching and engaging with an audience. Yes.
Sarah loves numbers and facts.
Well, I only like them when they're positive.
Those numbers. I like high numbers, not numbers.
So that's giving me joy because it is making me be like, this isn't just
I'm not just joy.
This is real, which is great.
Yes,
also, Little Saints is really good. I had their ginger mule like can thing. And it's yum.
Turns out.
Yeah.
They're actually on the fence.
And I'm on the fence. I really enjoy the alcohol, but I would like, I don't know, swap it out. To Yvonne's model. Don't have to get rid of it all day. Maybe just move it to like once a week.
It's balance. It's balance, baby.
Exactly.
Why is balance so hard? It feels like it should be the easiest thing because that's when it feels best. But no, we're working on it. Until then, Little Saints.
Truth.
That's their new tagline. You're welcome, Little Saints. We got you.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Well, thank you, V.
Thanks for sharing her story.
Of
course.
Thanks,
Yvonne, for being comfortable to share it.
Yeah, Yvonne, your growth is tremendous, and we're so grateful that the alchemy of your life is really magical. a lot of hard things, turning them into a lot of useful and helpful things for yourself and everyone around you.
And
so thank you.
Yeah. And the next generation.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Amazing.
All right. I love you.
All right. Love you.
Rock the rest of your day. Okay, bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and we can reach even more rock stars like you. The Mothers is a production of Backline Media, shining a light on those who carry the team.